Hi, I'm Luminaria Star, and this is a Metaphysician's Journal. Hi! So you have decided that you want to learn how to read the Lenormand Oracle cards. Well, I have got some good advice for you. It's not an offshoot of tarot, nor is it read in the same way as tarot. The cards are different, the approach is different, and the mindset is very different. These cards are much more modern and concrete in their approach, much more practical and businesslike. It makes them very well suited for everyday concerns and businesslike applications. They're so concrete in their style at times and so forthright and blunt that they might seem downright rude, in contrast to the much more elevated and multi-layered tarot, which relate to a much more spiritual and mystical world view. Secondly, if you consider yourself an early adopter, well, I hate to tell you this, but you're about 200 years too late. This has been a widely used and extremely popular variety of cartomancy in Europe and South America for a very long time. It's only in the US that they've become trendy relatively recently, experiencing a tremendous upsurge of interest and popularity within the last 5 to 10 years. There are several card systems that are related to the Lenormand Oracle system and bear the same name, but the most commonly used at this point in time are the Petit Lenormand, which is a system of 36 cards and have nothing to do, actually, with Mademoiselle Marie Lenormand, for whom they are named as a marketing gimmick, because she was very famous in her time. As a matter of fact, she was the most famous fortune teller in France and probably in all of Europe in her lifetime. So that was purely a marketing gimmick. The other systems are somewhat less commonly used, with the possible exception of the Gypsy Witch cards, which are loosely related to the Lenormand Oracle and are widely available in the US, but are not quite the same. For one thing, the Gypsy Witch Oracle is based on the traditional standard playing card deck with 52 cards and 2 jokers, and has a somewhat different numbering system and different playing card correspondences than the Petit Lenormand. They are possibly the oldest cartomancy system in common use in the United States, being in fairly widespread distribution since 1904. It's only recently that most people have really noticed the association with the Lenormand Oracle, since the upsurge of interest in the Lenormand cards really hit here in the US. Nevertheless, in spite of claims to be the true Lenormand Oracle, they are not that any more than any of the other systems called Lenormand. There is also a Grand Jeu system, also called the astro-mythological Lenormand Oracle, that are a complete departure from the other Lenormand Oracle systems and are now somewhat harder to find. They're also pretty expensive now. They're perhaps the most difficult to learn of the Lenormand family of cards because many of the myths upon which they are based are no longer in common usage. with the exception of the standard dozen or so bestseller myths, so to speak. Now, there's also a 32 card deck, sometimes called cigarette cards, which are very similar to the Petit Lenormand with a few missing. But not all cigarette cards are created equal, and lots of them are not based on the Lenormand system, have nothing to do with divination, and are completely what would seem to be comparatively random images. Like they'll have sports figures or pinup girls, things like that. They're very collectible, but they're not what we're talking about. The deck we'll be dealing with here is the Petit Lenormand, in case I haven't made that clear, which is the system of 36 cards. This is derived from the game of hope, also known as Das Spiel der Hoffnung, which is a game of chance designed by Johann Caspar Hechtel of Nuremberg back in 1799. Now, it is known that Mademoiselle Lenormand did use cards in her sessions with clients, but no decks designed by her have ever been found. Accounts from various of her clients say that she randomly mixed playing cards and tarot cards, which must have been the Tarot de Marseille, which was in common usage in her era. And many of the cards had symbols and or keywords that she had scribbled on them. But since no surviving decks have ever been found, no one can accurately guess what her method actually was. The rest of the history is fairly well outlined in a variety of books, so I won't bore you with further details. I'll let you explore that aspect of things further as you see fit in your own time, should that interest you. There are several schools of methodology in reading the Lenormand cards, the most well-known of which are the French Modern School, the traditional German School. There are several other schools that are a little bit more obscure, such as the Brazilian School. Lenormand is very, very popular in Brazil. Now, most of the meanings are pretty similar across the board, but there are some minor differences in interpretation and in the combined meanings of the cards as used in readings. When you're starting out, it's strongly suggested that you pick one school and stick to it until you've mastered the method. And I found that to be very good advice. The earliest book available in English on the Petit Lenormand that I could find out about was Sylvie Steinbeck's Secrets of the Lenormand Oracle, first released in August 2007. She may have had no idea that the floodgates were about to open in a few years, but it was very well timed. And the first book that I personally was able to get my hands on was Learning Lenormand by Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin. This volume was released in 2013, more or less in tandem with a historically significant deck that was adapted from an original antique deck that they got permission to reproduce from the collection of the British Museum. And this was released in several limited edition print runs. The design was produced in collaboration with the famous tarot designer Ciro Marchetti. And this collaborated effort did a great deal to spread the word about Lenormand cards in English-speaking countries, propping the floodgates open for years to come. In the meanwhile, a few other authors were quietly at work producing their own contributions to the Lenormand pool of available knowledge. In 2014, Raina George released her superb book, The Essential Lenormand, which is an excellent go-to source with which to begin your studies. She speaks very simply and clearly, but at no point does she ever talk down to you. It's also advanced enough that as your skill level increases, you will find more and more meat and substance in the text, which renders it a very enduring tool that remains relevant as you progress in your skill level. This is a book that you will never outgrow. Now, in the UK, two scholars were working on their masterpieces in the field at the same time. Andy Boravichengra's Lenormand 36 cards, fortune-telling with the Petit Lenormand, was released in Kindle format in 2014, and it has his own unique, erudite fingerprint on it. It was intended as an introduction, but it's very comprehensive, and he has since announced that he intends to only produce additional articles about the finer, more advanced points of practice after this, rather than going on to produce the second volume which he originally planned. And this might be a little bit complex for an absolute beginner, but it really has a lot of substance to it. So this is a really good acquisition. And last but far from least is the comprehensive, complete Lenormand Oracle Handbook by Caitlin Matthews. This is the Encyclopedia Britannica of Lenormand. It is a master's thesis in paperback. This book will take you far into your skill-building process when you have reached a more advanced level of comprehension. This is possibly too much for a beginner to handle. If you can only afford a couple of books on Lenormand, I really suggest you start with this one and then go to this one. And then, should you decide to really, really sink your teeth into Lenormand, Andy's book is also really full of extra texture. Those are the go-to books that I recommend. It's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Now, other works on Lenormand Oracle reading are proliferating at a dizzying speed. But these are the seminal works that got the ball rolling, at least in the English language. If you're looking for a manageable way to begin, those are the recommendations that I'm making. The others are also good resources. I'm sure as you find yourself evolving in your practice, many more materials will become available, and no doubt you'll find that lots of those will also be very useful. Now, as far as decks go, in my opinion, it's best to begin with a traditionally based design. A good example is the French cartomancy deck. It's nothing fancy, and frankly, the book that comes with it is trash. Don't bother with the book. I don't recommend that you throw it away, because kits retain their value better when you keep all of the original parts, okay? But don't use it to learn with, because it'll just confuse you, and when you get yourself scrambled like that, it can really hinder your learning process. Stick with the materials that have already been discussed at this point in the podcast. Now, another reason why I suggest this deck is that if you find that Lenormand is not for you, this is a very inexpensive acquisition, and it will be no great financial loss. Okay? You can always pass it on to a friend who is more interested in Lenormand than you find yourself to be, if that is the case. However, if you decide that Lenormand is for you, this is nothing to be embarrassed by. This is a good classic deck. It doesn't have the elaborate and gorgeous, fantastical artwork that many of the collector decks have, but It's a good working tool, very basic, nothing to be embarrassed by. If you want to begin with something that is more of a complete kit, this right here is what I would recommend. This is another offering by Caitlin Matthews, and it's a nice little kit. It has a nice sturdy box. It has a very good little deck. It's a nice handy size. Fits very well in small hands, which I personally find very appealing because I have small hands. And the images are very attractive, very attractively produced. The cardstock is nice and heavy, so it will stand up to continuous use. It has a very good little book that comes with it. It's not as comprehensive as her handbook, but this is a good learning tool. It has good definitions in it, every card. It has some card combinations. It has some suggestions for layouts. This is a good beginning tool right here. And it has a bonus as well. It has this lovely house placement chart for what is the holy grail of all Lenormand reading, the grand tableau. Sooner or later, if you decide to really pursue this method of reading, this system of cards, you will be attempting the grand tableau. And this is a nice chart that shows what the houses are and where the placements are. It's very attractive, like it's made to match the cards. My one bone to pick with this kit is that the cards artwork is somewhat murky and it very readily disappears right into the chart. So if you need glasses, wear them. When you use this system here, don't leave your glasses in another room. Definitely make sure you've got good lighting in the room. Don't give in to your vanity and have dim lighting in the room when you're using this deck, okay? Especially if you're using it with this chart. You'll wind up spilling your cards on the floor and looking very silly. Okay? It's not a good image or impression to make if you're reading for somebody. If you're by yourself, of course it doesn't matter, but if you're reading for somebody else and you spill your cards on the floor because you were too mystical to turn the lights on, well, it's not going to make you look very sharp. This kit is a very good acquisition. It's a good value. It's a reasonable price. You really can't go wrong with this. As far as acquiring some of the fancier collector decks with the elaborate artwork and everything, give it time. Eventually, yes, of course, you'll want to start a collection. That's almost inevitable. Almost every card reader winds up wanting to acquire remarkable artwork that is also useful, like the various decks that are being produced now in great numbers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But as a beginner, for a while, stick with the basics that have clearly marked elements and that are easy to work with while you're still in the beginning learning phase. Going back to the French cartomancy cards here, let me explain something about how the cards work. Each card has 3 elements. There's the basic image. There's the card inset, which corresponds to a playing card. And there's the card number. Like all divination systems, these cards originated as a game. In this case, the game of hope, as I told you before. It's very important for you to learn all three elements as you master these cards. There are no shortcuts. You really need to learn all three elements of each and every card. There are only 36 of them. You can do this. It's really, really worth it to make the effort. They're very accurate. It's worth going through the effort. It really is. If you're going to use them on a continual basis, learn to do the method right. Really. People will know the difference. The quality of your readings will be much greater if you really have that confidence and the knowledge to back up what you're telling your clients. People will tell you that they read intuitively. Well, they may be able to get away with that with other divination systems, but what that really translates to is they make it up as they go along. And with Lenormand, I'm sorry, that will not fly. It just won't. Other readers will snicker behind their hands because they know better. And really, you'll be doing yourself no favors trying to cut corners like that, trying to follow that example. Don't go that route. Learn the material. And another quick warning, if you're well versed in tarot, you may be tempted to import tarot think into Lenormand readings. Don't do it. This is not tarot. Don't be fooled into thinking that they are interchangeable. Even though there are a few cards that have a superficial resemblance to each other in the two systems, they are not related, not even slightly. So do the work and reap the rewards. These are great cards. This is a great reading system. It's incredibly accurate. You can get wonderful results if you learn to do it right. And in the future, I will be doing some reviews of Lenormand decks and other publications, so watch for them. I will be posting in social media as these things become available, and I'll make it worth your while. There will always be good information here. This concludes this edition of A Metaphysician's Journal. Blessed be.